All right. Welcome, everyone, to the next exciting episode of Lending Leadership with the Mortgage Pros. As always, Robert Fillyaw here, joined by my cohorts, Dave Holland and Tom Mills. What's up, fellas? How are y'all today?
Good. How are you, bud?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I'm good. I am in San Francisco getting ready to watch Florida whip up on Maryland in the Sweet 16. So excited about that.
We'll see about that.
Tom's already off his rocker, but yeah. Hey, exciting topic today, something that we hear a lot in the industry, and I'm excited to mix it up with you guys. Today, we're going to be talking about overcoming objections like a pro and how you can turn a no into let's talk. Everyone out there, if you've been in this business any amount of time and you've ever asked for business, you've been hit in the face with some level of objection, some level of no. We're going to talk about, kind of what some of those standard typical objections we hear are, maybe how to overcome them, but probably more important than the actual, objection is the ideas behind it and the talking points around it. What do you guys think of that?
I think that's great.
We're talking buyer objections, realtor objections, both?
Yes, both. Let's tackle both.
Yeah, let's do both.
What do you want to do first?
Let's start with our realtor objections because, our buyers are our customers, but our realtors are our referral sources. Everyone out there, that's an important thing to keep in mind. A buyer will feed you for a day. A realtor will feed you for life, right? This is one of my favorite ones. I'll take the first one. You call the agent, you've done your due diligence on them. They're qualified. It's someone that you want to work with. You give them a call and you get hit with, hey, thanks so much for calling, but I already have a preferred lender.
The natural first response, right?
Bam. I've already got somebody.
Of
Nice
course.
try.
Of course you do. Of course you do. You're a full-time professional agent. I mean, that's what you say. That's always the answer back.
Because that's the go-to. That's probably the 8 out of 10, objections that you hear.
It's so easy for them also, right? Like, I already got somebody.
Meanwhile, we're looking on like Redder, and we know it's these 3 people, and we think there's room for me to slide in and overtake them all.
Yeah, you closed 12 deals last year with 8 different lenders. Let's talk. So I love this one, and I've used it a couple times to overcome or to really just kind of shift the narrative. Of course you do. You're a rock star. Why wouldn't you? I just want you to think about this. Even Tom Brady had a backup. As good as your lender may be, what happens if you need someone else in a pinch? Let me be your backup.
That really flowed out of your mouth effortlessly, Robert. I like it.
I've said it hundreds of times.
Yeah.
You obviously don't just ask for business. You have some impression with the agent, you meet them, and then there's a follow-up, for business. So I guess, the objection maybe, trying to get them to meet with you, and they're like, hey, I have somebody I work with and, I'm really busy. I think you have to play into, look, I mean, what do successful people do? They collaborate with successful people. So if you believe that you're a good loan officer, really know your market ahead of things, you have to lean into that a little bit and say, hey, I get it. You're successful. I'm successful. Let's get together. One of the advantages of my career, I'm sure has been yours, is collaborating with great people. You never know what comes of it, type of thing. Let's get together and talk. In the end of the day too, if you haven't had the objection, you're not really making sales attempts. So, you're not going to convert everybody. Everybody's not meant to meet with you or not meant to do business with you. And sometimes their objections valid. So I think, just take a real genuine approach towards solving it, whatever it is. Because if you start to get too salesy, they're already trying to push you off with the first push off.
Salespeople don't like being sold to, right? And I figure if I can convert 10% of the realtors that I'm chatting with on a regular basis, that's a massive number. That seems like a modest number. Maybe there's some of our listeners. And Tom, to your point, if you're not getting no's on a regular basis, you're not really putting yourself out there.
Yeah, you're not asking.
And sometimes it's not a no. Like sometimes I meet with realtors and I think they're cool. Like I'd want to work with them, but we just don't vibe. For some reason, I meet with them. They seem great. I'm like, it's not going to be a good fit. And he or she is never going to send me business. And I know that usually with the first 15 minutes.
And that's okay. That's
that's totally okay. Yeah. It's just not a good fit. They may have a long-term, 15-year relationship with someone, and maybe their cousin, maybe they're like sibling, a college buddy. So, or they just have a really good relationship. So, at the end of the day, it's kind of a numbers game, right? You just, this is obvious to a lot of our listeners, but people forget. You just need more at bats. You got to meet with more realtor partners, overcome more objections. And like Tom said, if you're not getting a lot of no's, you're probably not doing a lot of prospecting and sales activities. And for me, and I mean this, like I loved like just meeting with realtors, if I don't know them well enough, usually over coffee because it's quicker, right? It can be half an hour, 20 minutes. I like getting to know them. I like getting their ideas because it gives me energy. And also, if we never work together, that's okay because if they're a buyer's agent and they have the buyer, or if they're a listing agent, I have a better shot of getting my offer accepted. And also, they may not try to, since they know me out of respect, they're not going to divert their buyer to their in-house lender or to their preferred lender, right? So I try to meet with everyone, as many people as possible.
I think you're right. I think it's a numbers game, but in the same sense, there's got to be some strategy behind the numbers, right? I mean, we're not calling out of a phone book, so we start with qualified realtors number one, but we could probably have a whole nother call about that.
I think it also depends. That's a whole different call, but I think it also depends on your level of business and where you want to set the bar. I mean, I would say 6 to 8 buy sides at a minimum.
Yeah, yeah. But I think, let's say you have, 50 realtors you're focused on that you're trying to get business from, and, X amount of them are really high level producers, you can't take the shotgun approach with that agent and just pick up the phone randomly and nothing behind it and grab a meeting, I think that you have to take a more strategic approach. You have to engage them differently. You have to seek them out. You have to engage with them online. You have to see them at events. You have to know a little bit about them, know a little bit about their business. So you're coming at it in a way that you learn a little bit more about them, and it's not as shotgun. And I think when you do that, maybe you get them to follow you a little bit. You can do some things to remove the objection. I think there's some ways you can position yourself.
The other thing that I really like when you get that objection, if I already have a preferred lender, is I just like to open it up, right? Ask an open-ended question. Oh, of course you do. That's awesome. What do you like with working about them? Because now maybe I can learn something that'll make me better, and I can learn where can I add value to them in the future, to try to build that relationship. Great first objection. What other objections do you guys hear from real estate agents?
I give out 3 cards. I give out 3 lenders. That's classic. Some people, some realtors think that is like
A requirement.
requirement.
It's a rule.
It's not. Listen, I get that everyone wants the best transaction or the best possible terms to a certain degree. But what I don't want to have happen ever is that my team and myself work really hard with the customer, weekends, evenings, cost sheets, and at the end they get 2 other phone numbers, and then it's a beauty contest, right? Because then I've done all the work, and there's a chance that I don't get paid, and I think that's fair. No one wants to do a lot of work and not get paid for it. It's unfortunately it's something. It's a reality in our business. The other thing is they give out 3 cards in the beginning, then you got 3 salespeople in their ear, right? With
Create confusion.
Right? And then it's like a beauty pageant. It's hard to show value. They're getting bad information. They probably already have in their ear possibly a parent, a friend, Uncle Bill who bought a house 17 years ago one time, right? So it creates confusion. Like my best agents generally, and I respect agents when we give out 3 cards, but my best agents usually don't give out me because they know I'll do a good job. They know I have good terms. And I think we all agree, like we're never going to have the best terms. No mortgage person's going to have the best terms. Can't have the best terms, the fastest service, and the most quality service. Those you could have 2 out of 3. You can't have all
2 out of 3.
Yeah, you can't get all 3. But if someone says, "What's the best pizza in Robinson Township where my office is at?" I'm not going to give them 3 or 4 names. I had an agent one time say I give out 5 or 6 names. I'm like, that makes your life miserable because my top agents want to know what I'm going to do, how my team works, how I work. We can anticipate each other. We kind of get in the flow. And when you're giving out, 2, 3, 4 names, I mean, it's impossible.
All right. So if you give out those 3 cards every time, but every, customer that seems to get this one card is raving you, thanking you, and service is just at another level of the other 2, are you continuing to send all 3 of those cards? Why would you do that? If you have someone that can is proven to provide superior service, proven to create raving fans and a better overall customer experience, why wouldn't you want to steer it that direction? And I think maybe they just haven't had that yet. maybe they haven't really been impressed or wowed or had that loan officer that's become that person that they have that level of confidence to say, "Hey, I need you to talk to Dave. He's amazing. All my customers love working with his team. They're great. Let's get to the pre-approval phase. If you're not happy with them, you're able to shop whoever you want to shop with, and then it's up to us to win, right?"
And I get some agents that do a high volume of business may have some specialty lenders that do some odds and ends,
Certainly.
whatever that may be, doctor program. Yeah, yeah. So, like, more sophisticated agents have it, but when an agent's constantly sending out three, it's tough because it's a beauty contest. And as a loan officer and a professional, I pour into my customers, right? Me and my team really do. So I don't want to do a ton of work only to, have someone make the last phone call or they like their personality or some little nuance thing. So yeah, that's not a good fit for most LOs, I don't think.
Dave doesn't want to be involved in any beauty contests. I'll leave that there. Yeah, no, I think, listen, what the flip side of that though, right? I know we're talking about objections, but how about just for a second, the flip side, when you have that agent that validates, I've had this with some of my top referral partners that no, Robert is the guy. And if I'm your agent, he's your lender. Like we're going to work together. We're the team. That's a pretty cool feeling on the opposite end of the spectrum. So.
Absolutely.
Well, your top producing agents usually take less of a passive approach when it
Yeah.
comes to the referral, because they're top
They're not
producing
as
agents.
commission scared either.
Yeah, I mean, they're not scared, and I think customers feel that, there's a level of confidence that you can portray, and, this is a person that's going through a process that's really unknown to them, and they're looking for that level of confidence in my mind, so I think it's the best way to serve the customer is if you truly believe and have confidence in someone's team, then you're doing doing that customer service by referring them there.
Well, plus from a top producing realtor standpoint, or even not a top producer, they want to make sure their life is smooth. They don't want to. I don't want to bash. Yeah, they don't want to bash any lenders on this call, but it's like XYZ lender that they've never heard of out of Timbuktu that's going to make their life a living hell, and they're not going to have any updates. They're not going to know what's going on with the file. So for them, it makes their life easier.
It's funny that you talked about this XYZ lender that never heard of, because that's another objection from real estate agents. And I think it's probably a good last one for us to touch on. You reach out to this agent and you get I've never heard of you before. I don't know you. And you just touched on it as almost as an objection, a counterpoint objection on why they should work with you versus someone else. So when you have an agent say that, what do you say, Dave?
It's really not a problem in my primary market where I'm here. It does happen, right? Maybe they haven't heard of me. Not all LOs listening are going to have this, but I would direct them to, we use experience.com. I would direct them to my experience.com page and show them, I think I have like 600 reviews. So that says something. Other things that I do, I tell them how many years of experience that I have, right? So I have a lot of experience. Not everyone has that. I think what I did in the past when I was younger, I would send them like a bio, like a cover letter. Sometimes I would even fax it, right? So you got to think quick on your feet, and you got to talk about the transactions you've done, the experience you have, the reviews. But I guess I don't really have an answer for if you're brand new in the business, what you say. I mean, maybe
you don't hear that one very often anymore.
Yeah.
I think, I don't think any of us hear that very often anymore.
I do when I'm out of market though. If I'm
out of market.
If I'm doing like a transaction recently in South Carolina or West Virginia, I had that objection. I said, hey, that's fair.
Yeah, let's just say you moved to a completely new market, so they didn't, and I would just take that opportunity to introduce myself, and like you said, Dave, give some validation, behind yourself, and what you've done in your career, customer reviews, what you specialize in, what you're good at, what you love about the business, what you know about them while you're calling,
Well,
It's confidence on the phone too. It's confidence.
So all of that is, I don't want to get ahead of ourselves because we're gonna talk about this a little bit, but all of these objections, guys, and this is a perfect example. There's a root, there's a foundation to that objection, and when you can understand what that foundation is, then it helps you with how do you overcome it, right? I've never heard of you before. It's basically them saying, without saying, because they're too polite to say it, I don't know you, I don't trust you, I'm not putting my paycheck in your hand, right?
Yeah.
That's what they're saying. So now where their concerns are, you can know how to address it. Totally fair. it's an opportunity now for you to build and earn trust, for you to grow that rapport, for you to, maybe take a stab at something that doesn't have a snowball's chance in hell of closing anyway. And you may not get a close, but you outwork and out communicate, right? And you start building that rapport in the relationship. So every objection has some foundation of concern. And when you can identify what that is,
So
and then you know how to best kind of overcome it and work around it.
Before we move off, realtor objections, I want all the listeners to understand this. Like sometimes, a hard no in the beginning is better than like getting, bled to death over the course of a year or two, like a maybe. Like I'd rather if a realtor is never going to work with me, I'd rather kind of know that up front than a maybe over a long period of time.
Well, again, let's
Yeah.
not put them on a pedestal. The average realtor makes, much less money than the average loan originator even today. So let's not put them on a pedestal. I think, if you think you believe in yourself, you believe in your team, you believe in your ability to deliver, and you believe you have products that have some solutions for some borrowers today, you got to be confident in that. Don't put them on a pedestal. They actually need you as bad or as much as, if not worse, than you need them.
Yeah, you're the prize, guys, no doubt.
Yeah.
There are 10 agents to every, talented, productive lender.
Yeah.
That number's probably higher, actually. Just think of that. Look at your local market. Look at how many agents there are, and then look at how many lenders there are you would actually do business with, and do the math on it. You'll be surprised. All right, so let's move on to customer objections. These are some of my favorites, right? We hear them all the time. So what's probably the number one
Well,
customer
wait.
objection you guys hear?
The one thing that the customer's trained to ask, right?
What is it?
What's your rate? I mean,
What's your rate?
yeah, the customer is trained to shop rates.
Or I wanna wait until rates are dropping, or rates are too high, or something rate based.
And in fact, they don't even say that they're shopping lenders or mortgage companies. They say, I'm shopping rates. It's the number one objection out there. I think rates, today are just, there's so much reason to create confusion. I think when they're higher, meaning higher, like above 6.5, above 6, it's a natural, reaction to want for lower. Because they've seen different things, advertising, and advertisements can be very confusing. You need to read everything, that's advertised, essentially, because it's not always what you see until you read the fine print. But a lot of information out there for the customer. And I think the first thing to ask them is a question back when they tell you that they think your rate is high, or if we're dealing with that, your rate's a little high, just ask them compared to what.
Compared to what?
Yeah, I mean, because
Compared to 4 years ago? Yeah, it's high.
or is it compared to the guy that's got a 0.25% better with 2 points? I don't know, but what are we comparing it to?
Right.
What are we talking about, first of all? Because you can have the best rates in the market, and somebody can go beat your rate tomorrow. So it's not just, it's
Somebody will
not,
say your rate is high.
yeah.
As we talk about the foundation of the objection, right? You make a great point. That's a buyer objection because that's what they have been pre-programmed and predispositioned to ask. They don't know to ask anything different, right?
Mhm.
So, I've always really looked at our role as a advisory role, right? As a really an aspect of financial planning. So it's my job to find out what is your long-term goal with this purchase that you're making, right? With this mortgage that we're doing, what's your objectives? And then to guide you through, right? It's important, but in your situation, depending on what we're doing and all the variables, it might not even be a relevant part of our conversation. They just don't know to ask any different or ask anything else. So that's where you really have to get in and become that educator. This is what frustrates me. I'm going to get on my soapbox for a minute. This is what frustrates me so much about some of these online lenders or these AI type lenders that are really just a commoditization of our industry, because they're just slapping someone in a deal. You don't know if it's the right fit or the best thing long term for what their whole financial plan is. And that's annoying. So, loan officers, you have to do your part to educate and to guide your clients to make sure that you're not commoditizing our industry.
Well, I think there's a lot of customers out there that you don't even have the opportunity to get their objection because rates have kept them in the stands. Whether it's a customer that's got, 2.99, 3%, 3.25, and is sitting there with debt up to their neck, but they don't want to consider consolidating that debt into double an interest rate where they're at, or that person that would, bought their home with remorse in 2021 and would love to go buy a new home, but they don't want to because interest rates are double. We got to think about that. We're not even getting the opportunity to talk to those people. Like, they're staying in the stands. I mean,
Well,
what do you
first-time
guys
home
think?
buyers
Should
too.
they be? Should they be in the stands, or should they be if they want to do something? Should they be doing something?
Well, first-time home buyers always say, "I'm waiting for rates to drop."
Yeah,
Right,
true.
which I get that mindset. Well, I don't get it. I mean, I understand why someone would say that, but as soon as if rates were to drop 1% tomorrow, overnight, all the home prices are gonna probably go up
Yeah, they always correlate.
5, 10, 15%. The best time to buy real estate is now. The second best time to buy real estate is tomorrow. Did I get that right?
No, it was yesterday.
Was
Yesterday,
yesterday. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we've talked about this, I think, on this podcast, right? The only thing that is variable in a real estate transaction generally is the interest rate, right? So you buy something today, you refinance it, hopefully within 18 to 24 months, maybe sooner, depending on the loan size.
In the same sense, if you're in the home you want to be in that home for the rest of your life, you don't have debt, you have a 2.75 interest rate, I will be the first to tell you, Mr. Customer, you should not be touching that mortgage. You have no reason to. If that's where you want to be, you're not going to outgrow that home, need to downsize from that home anytime soon. You don't have debt. Enjoy it.
Also, I'm gonna throw this out there, it's cliched, but interest on rent's 100%. So anyway, moving along. How about this objection? Because I hear this all the time as well. And there's a lot of false narratives out there. There's a lot of myths, a lot of lack of knowledge. I don't think I'll qualify. I don't have 20% down. I don't think I'll qualify. I've only got a 650 credit score. Whatever it may be, something around objections because of qualification concerns.
What's the stat? And I should have looked at the notes and known this before. What percent of people think that you need 20% down to buy a home? It's like a large number of people, first-time home buyers.
I don't know. Maybe our producer can Google that while we keep chatting and put it in the notes for us, so we'll have it.
There you go. There you go. Yeah. So misconceptions that you need 20% down, misconceptions that your debt to income ratio, it's got to be 28 front end, 36 back end. I mean, that was like way old school, but some people think that, a lot of programs, VA, USDA, FHA, there's still some 0% down programs. You still need some money, right? You're still going to need some money in a transaction, but a lot of borrowers think they don't have enough saved, or their credit's too low.
I think if you want to buy a home in the next 1 to 2 years and you're saying I'm saving money to buy a home, you should have already talked to a mortgage professional and gotten some advice to know what it's going to take for you to qualify. How much are you going to need to save? Otherwise, what are you saving for? You don't even know how much you need to save. You could have missed the boat, a year ago, and here you are stacking money. And by the way, that home now is worth $27,000 more than it was a year ago. So, I think you got to have a plan down. And I think anytime you are considering buying a home, there's a lot changing with this market too. So don't even think if you did it 6 years ago, 7 years ago, 8, 10 years, you don't think, oh, I've been there, done that. You don't. You should have some conversations if you think you're going to do something. There's any level of concern you don't think you may qualify.
Tom, to your point, we've seen it. People, we're waiting for the market to drop, market to crash, right? Or to go down. And interest rates doubled 2.5 times.
Sure.
Home values in some markets went up 30-40%. So there is a pretty high cost for waiting. That home that you would have been paying a mortgage payment of $2,500 a month is now $5,500.
Yeah, every market's a little bit different how it's moving, but yeah, there's generally a cost of waiting. I mean, over time, home values are you're pretty much you're gonna win, over time. And like Robert said, the interest rate on is always higher on rent.
It's 100%. I hate that.
I know you do. That's why I said it. That's why I said
Well,
it.
hey, listen, buying a home.
Why I rephrased it.
Some people should rent, right? I mean, buying a home is not for everyone. Sometimes renting makes more
properties.
sense.
So
The average age of the homeowners rising, dramatically. It's 38 now.
It's 38.
38.
I
I think as
remember it was
a
30.
loan officer out there, when you get that objection, I don't think I'll qualify. Like, this is really an opportunity for you to show value and to show your knowledge base and be that advisor, right? And like, you can have a quick conversation. You don't even have to pull credit. Like, you don't even have to get a full app. If I got a client that says, I'd love to buy a home. I don't think I'd qualify. I would have a 3 to 5 minute conversation with that client and figure out real quickly, oh, really? Why do you think that? What are your concerns with qualifying? Let's talk about it.
Mhm.
Where do you think the sticking point is? And that's going to bring up some of these maybe misconceptions, and now you can educate and you can guide them through. And I've actually done this in the past. I taught a first time homebuyer class for years and years and years. I would have people taking the class in the hopes that one day they would be able to qualify. And almost every class, there would be someone in there that, you know, I think it's probably going to be a year and a half, 2 years, 3 years before I can buy. And they would leave that class and I would close a house loan for them, a mortgage for them in the next 30 to 45 days. They were
Mm.
ready and they just didn't know it.
They didn't know it.
So have that conversation, guys. It's powerful. Any other customer objections we want to kick around?
I mean, I think we tackled the big ones. It's the customers that are on the fence, and and rates is what you hear most. You've always got, my dad used to do business with this bank, or such and such says they'll match whatever offer I get, things like that. But I think grand scheme of it, at the end of the day, you gotta. One thing with customers, I think, is you have to show value. You can't just tell them how valuable you are. It's funny because, someone will work with a customer for 2 months, and you had 2 months to really win that customer over, and then they're under contract, and then you wanna tell them how great your team's gonna be. Like, they've had 2 months with your team. They should already know that your team's great. At that point, you have to make it hard for them. Like, if you're a good originator, you're not just you're not hearing, "I got a better rate." You're hearing, "Dave, listen, I got a better rate, but I really wanna work with you guys. Here's what I was offered." Any mortgage company compete with any mortgage company any other day, but who depend on who they wanna trim out of the deal and make that deal happen. I think that's important to understand.
Great conversation, guys, on overcoming the objections and specific objections, and how to have some dialogue and some value add, and really you use them. Objections can be a great opportunity to build relationships and to gain trust. So let's talk a little bit in closing on the psychology of handling the objections, because I think when we do it the right way, it can actually be a positive and not a negative, which is typically how we view objections. So one thing I always like to remember as you get objections is what I already said, right? That there's some foundational concern that is bringing that objection up. They're giving you a pushback because they have something that they are worried about that you have not eased their fear on. And when you can get to that root and determine what that is and address that and kind of check that box, you're off and running. What are some of the other things you guys see in regards of like the psychology of handling objections?
One of my problems, and it still is, and as we're talking about, I'm thinking to myself, I need to work on this, is to remain calm and truly listen. Your customer, anything in life, they may be telling you one thing, but it's not exactly it. And also, sometimes you're ready just to blurt out and have diarrhea of the mouth and ready to, sell them, but you're really not listening to what they are saying. And I've probably lost hundreds of thousands of dollars over the years as a result of truly not listening. So becoming a better listener in all facets of life, but especially when it comes to sales, is a very key discipline that we all can improve on.
Well said. That old saying of your ears are your greatest sales tool is very true because, you're not realizing you're getting objections because you missed the whole opportunity. What they were looking for, it went right over you. You were thinking about the next thing and you weren't listening. And if you were, you would have tailored things or presented things in a way that maybe didn't get that objection. That's a really great point, Dave.
Yeah.
And I think my mindset's just, look, what we do, we solve problems, we make things happen for people, and we're looking to contact realtors to find more people that we can solve problems and make things happen for. So I think you just have to have that mindset, like, hey, I'm here to help. I'm here to solve. I'm servant. That's my mindset. That's why I'm here. Don't But in the end of the day, let them know how you can help, how you help people, what you do to help people, and do that enough, and you're just offering to help people. And objections are going to come. That just means they don't need your help at that point. And I think don't make it a big deal. Just get out and ask more. That's where that numbers game comes in. Absolutely. The more people you talk to, the more people you ask about a mortgage, the more mortgages you're going to originate. That is a fact. So just get out and talk.
I love both of what you guys have said, and that mentality piece, Tom, is so vital. An objection isn't necessarily a no. It oftentimes it's a, I need more information, or it's an invitation for as an originator for you to ask open-ended questions to better understand what their concern is, what their need is, what they're actually trying to get to, and then go from there. I think, Dave, you had a great point. So often we're so worried about selling, we go to the diarrhea of the mouth. And if you'll just pause and listen and then ask some open-ended questions to gain understanding and then come forward with a needs-based solution, you're going to win more often than you're going to lose.
True that.
Yeah. And something for all our listeners to remember, it's okay to walk away. It's okay to walk away.
You're not supposed to win them all.
Yeah, from certain if you're winning them all, you're not going the bad enough, but it's okay to walk away from certain realtor partners. It's okay to walk away from certain customers who use you and abuse you. Just say no. Walk away. And there's many more people who will respect you out in your individual marketplaces.
Today is opening day of baseball season. I always use that analogy. If you bat 300 in your career in baseball, you're probably gonna make the Hall of Fame, right?
Absolutely.
20-year veteran, 300 career average, you're going in the Hall of Fame, right?
Well, Hall of Fame.
The same probably apply if you get that many at bats in the mortgage business and you hit 300, you're probably going in the Hall of Fame. I believe that.
Absolutely.
Or you're going to make a lot of money.
That means you failed 7 times. That means 7 times you accepted no to the 3 times that you took yes. So those wins are great, aren't they? That's what is so beautiful about this business.
The more no's I get, the more money I make.
One step closer.
All right, y'all. Thanks so much for tuning in to Lending Leadership with the Mortgage Pros today. Hey, hope you enjoyed this episode. We've covered some realtor objections, some client objections, some psychology of the objections. Remember, listen first, validate concerns, open-ended questions, and then respond with a solution. Next time you hear an objection, instead of reacting defensively, try asking those questions and uncovering needs. See how it goes. If you've got a great way to handle objections, we'd love to hear from you. Drop us a message and let us know what it is. As always, don't forget to smash that like and subscribe button, and we'll see you on the next episode. For Tom Mills and Dave Holland, this is Robert Fillyaw. Have a great day.